It's that time of year. Father's Day is almost here, rare and juicy. Welcome back to Adornment with Adrienne. Hi, I'm Adrienne. I'm your auntie or your girlfriend of lifestyle and decor. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please be sure to click the subscribe button and click the bell for notification. If you're an adorner and you're back, thank you so much for rejoining me. You probably saw my thumbnail or you saw my little ad. And yes, I did cook those prime rib roasts. Say that 3 times really fast. Anyway, this is a little menu I created. You can do this yourself if you love Canva. This is not sponsored. It should be. All right. But for me, I have an affinity now for cooking prime rib roast for the holidays. And those are, for me, maybe Easter or Christmas. Okay, so you can go to your local butcher. All right, we want to talk about what we need to cook this, our ingredients. Okay, first, of course, we need a prime rib roast. Okay, now if you want to shell out the ducats or the dollars, the money, all right, you go to your butcher if you have a butcher, or if you're like me, I'm in the South, Publix, or if you're in maybe in Texas or various places, you have H-E-B, or you have Market Street, places like that. It's more of a little bit Albertsons, a little higher end where they might actually have a butcher. Okay, so we want to go to get our prime rib roast. All right, if it's large, I know here in where I am, if you're at Publix, they will actually cut it to size for you. If it's too large, okay, if you have one that maybe you don't need that many servings, or maybe you don't want to spend as much, they actually will cut it. The butcher will actually cut it for you. Okay, so what do we need? We need kosher salt or sea salt. Coarse salt, we need a nice coarse salt. We need cracked black pepper. All right, and I have taken to actually, don't forget your Worcestershire sauce. Say that 3 times really fast. Worcestershire sauce. All right, we also need rosemary. Well, you don't have to have rosemary. I really love rosemary, but we do need an olive oil, maybe 2 tablespoons of olive oil if you have it. If you don't have it, you definitely want to use maybe a butter to coat. We want it because we're using it to coat the outside of our rib roast. Okay, I would not suggest to use vegetable oil. Okay, let me say that again. I don't suggest you use vegetable oil. Okay, vegetable oil, when it's in the oven, it's on things, it kind of has a tendency to smoke. All right, and olive oil won't do that so much. So we want to coat the outside of our rib roast. Remember, about 2 tablespoons at the most. Slather it. Be friends with the rib roast. Slather it over your rib roast. And then you want to sprinkle to taste your salt, your cracked pepper, your rosemary if that's what you would like. And then we are going to preheat our oven. Remember, for a rib roast though, we want to make sure that before we cook it, it's at room temperature. Okay, take it out ahead of time. Okay, don't have it out all day, but maybe take it out an hour ahead of time. You want it to come to room temperature before you actually put it into the oven. Okay, so we have our rib roast. We prepped it. I would suggest, I like to put mine, as you can see here, I usually put it on a baking rack and then inside a baking sheet. Okay, and so all of the drippings are falling down into the baking sheet, and then that way you can use that later if you would like to make a gravy or an au jus. Okay, we'll talk about that closer to the end of the video. All right, so we want to preheat our oven, but before we do that, we want to lower the racks inside the oven. And what I mean is, if you have racks that are up high, maybe you want to take them out, but you want to lower them down. You don't really want to cook anything else in the oven when you're cooking this prime rib roast. Okay, so once you have lowered your racks inside the oven, then you want to preheat your oven between 450 and 500 degrees. Now, I would suggest 450. It depends on how hot your oven cooks, okay? All right, so once you have it preheated, the little bell goes off, it says 450. All right, you want to take your prime rib roast and put it in the oven. Now, what if you don't have a wire rack? You can use a pan, a roasting pan, or you can see here, you can use a pan that can actually go inside the oven, and that means it has a metal handle, that kind of thing, Calphalon, those type of things. All right, so you can use that to put it in the oven. Okay, we don't want to use anything that's Teflon or plastic. All right, so we're gonna put our prime rib roast. We have 450. We want to put it in the oven, and we want the outside to get a little crispness. All right, we want it to be a little crispy, right? And so we're gonna basically sear it without searing it in a pan. Okay, you can do that if you'd like. You can take your rib roast, turn it over, fat side down, sear it with a little oil or nonstick spray in a pan, but I don't suggest. We want to use our oven for what it's used for. All right, so we want to 20 minutes at the most. You should see a little coating on the outside of your rib roast. Then what we want to do, we want to lower our temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, again, 325 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, and then we're gonna cook our rib roast. We're gonna let it cook and be juicy and moist. All right, 325 degrees. All right, for every pound, you wanna cook it between 13 and 20 minutes. All right, so 13 to 20 minutes, okay? So if you have let's say you have a 5-pound rib roast, you're cooking it for 20 minutes, you want to cook it an hour and 40 minutes. All right, just so we can kind of get our math together on that, at 325 degrees. Okay, so what happens after that? I would suggest we take out our rib roast. We want it to rest. We are not cutting it, right? We're not going to cut it. It needs to rest. If you have aluminum foil, which I should suggest that you should have a roll of aluminum foil, you want to tent, which means you want to take a piece of the aluminum foil and put it over your rib roast and let the roast rest. And while you're doing that, what can we do? We can make sure we have our sides together. Usually for me with this, I would have asparagus, right, spears, which can be roasted in the oven. But here you see me, I am cooking them. I boil them, pull them out with some tongs perhaps, and let them drain on maybe a paper towel. If you can though, after you let your rib roast rest, I would suggest maybe roasting your asparagus in the oven, okay, so it's not wilty or wilted. And so anyway, also for your side dish, I would maybe, like I said, I have au gratin potatoes. I really like those. And you could basically, buy a box of au gratin potatoes and cook them. You need butter and milk or heavy cream if you don't want to make them from scratch. Okay, and so we have our rolls. Again, I talked about that at the beginning. These are yeast rolls that you would get at your local grocery store. You take them out 10 to 12 hours ahead of time. You let them rise all day. You can actually let them rise overnight. Set them out. I wouldn't suggest that you put cling wrap or aluminum foil on them. I would suggest just a basic dish towel. Let them rise overnight and cook them while your rib roast is resting for about 20 to 25 minutes. And they'll be nice and hot when they come out of the oven. Your rib roast will be ready. You could take your juice, your au jus, or your drippings from your roast. I usually put them in like a glass measuring cup, and try to separate, using a baster, maybe separate some of the oil off the top, and to use for au jus. If you like horseradish, that would be something else that you would pick up. You can pick it up at your local grocer. I'm not going to tell you how to make that right now, but you can make it from scratch. But you can just go and get some horseradish. You have your beautiful rib roast, your au gratin potatoes, your asparagus, and you have a beautiful meal that you can enjoy with your loved one, your dad, your uncle, your boyfriend, or your fur dad on Father's Day. All right, everyone. So I hope that you enjoyed that. It's quite a bit of undertaking to do a voiceover for this, but it's definitely worth it. Again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me with Adornment with Adrienne, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. And as always, saving hello for another time.